We begin in South Sudan. President Salva Kiir has said an imprisoned South African advisor to rebel leader Riek Machar and a rebel group spokesperson would be released on Thursday as part of a peace deal. Riek Machar was in the capital, Juba, for the first time in more than 2 years to take part in nationwide peace celebrations. In his address, Machar said he had come to confirm that he is committed to realizing peace for the country. He also promised to address the challenges of corruption and injustice. Under the peace deal signed in September, Machar will once again serve as vice president in President Salva Kiir's government. The peace event was also attended by leaders from Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, Somalia and Egypt. Well, let's now return to our top story, and that is the peace celebrations in South Sudan. Jane Kiyo is there standing by for us. Obviously, this is a big win for the peace efforts in the country. What would you say were the highlights of Wednesday's celebrations?
Well, Karen, one of the highlights was perhaps the arrival of Riek Machar. He is, of course, one of the key signatories, along with other opposition leaders, to this latest peace deal. Some people had not expected him to show up, largely because just a couple of days ago, he laid out a list of key demands he wanted met before he can actually set foot in Juba. Now, he did show up, and his speech was pretty much reconciliatory, pledging his support and commitment to the latest peace deal. So did his longtime rival, President Salva Kiir, who actually said he had forgiven Riek Machar and asked the South Sudanese people to forgive them together with Riek Machar for what they had actually put them through. Now, one of the strongest statements to come out of that was made by President Salva Kiir was that the war in South Sudan was now over, and he was ready to prove to his critics that this deal will actually be successful. And one of the things that he did, and one of the key things that he did during his speech, was actually authorize the military and security agencies to open up routes to allow the free movement of people. Of course, this has been difficult since conflict broke out. He also asked the opposition to actually reciprocate in the areas that were under their control. He also said that he will be releasing 2 political detainees tomorrow and asked the IDPs to return to their homes. Of course, people have been asking, so what makes this peace deal different from what we've seen in the past? And President Salva Kiir did allude to this, saying that this is one of the deals where they were not coerced or forced to sign, and he actually described the mediation team as impartial. Of course, one of the people that has been widely credited with successfully seeing this process through is none other than Sudan's Omar Hassan al-Bashir. And one of the highlights today was by Juba University awarding him a doctorate of philosophy in peace and diplomacy, not just because of this peace process, but what they said was his support for South Sudan even before the independence and after independence in 2011. Karen?
And Jane, so a spirit of forgiveness there, and of course, as you say, the rebel leader will now become the vice president. The hardest bit is yet to come, though, isn't it? How do we ensure the peace pact is not violated, and what sort of mechanisms do you think are going to be put in place to ensure that this will happen?
Well, what happens now, the onus is on what we are calling the National Pre-Transition Committee. This is the body that has been tasked with ensuring that the success of the unity government that should be formed in the next 7 months. Now, the team has been meeting in Khartoum. It's expected to move here in Juba. And one of the things that it will be doing is raising and sourcing for funds to ensure to support the implementation process. They will also be reorganizing opposition forces, knowing where they are, supporting their upkeep, their food, their medicine, and also organizing for their reintegration. All this, again, Karen, is to ensure and to pave way for the formation of a transitional government in the next 7 months. And like you mentioned, one of the key elements in this government of national unity is the reinstatement of Riek Machar to his former position, and that is of the vice president, which is what he was before he went into exile. Karen?
Okay, thank you very much. That was Jane Kiyo for us following the celebrations of the peace deal in Juba in South Sudan.